Welcome, Jai Bazevski, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming on and thank you for being flexible. I know sometimes my schedule can be pretty hectic, and when I work with coaches, I know you have a very hectic schedule too because you are in the world of fitness and mindset coaching. And that's going to keep anyone busy because people are trying to get the body for the summer. People are trying to get the mindset they needed to get the goals they want to attain in their life. And there's just so much that has to be done. And they're trying to do everything and they're trying to figure out, well, how can I do it? Well, the easiest way to do that, get a coach, number one. But we're going to be talking about the work that you do, understanding it, and then telling people the reason why they should be getting in touch with you. So, in your own words, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Yeah, so my name is Jai, and I am a fitness and mindset coach. I started out in the IT industry and transitioned across into the fitness world after having my own health complications, which were an issue with my heart. So I actually had a cardiac arrest. It was all just out of the blue. Turns out I had a rare heart condition that I was unaware of my whole life until I turned 27. And then that ended up being an issue for me. So I was playing sport one day and playing basketball, and my heart rate elevated to a point where it was just above and beyond. And then I ended up in hospital. They gave me some drug to try and help me, which I had an adverse reaction to. I then ended up falling into a coma as a result of that drug. And my heart rate elevated to a point where I flatlined and I was clinically dead for 3 minutes. They had to defibrillate me with the paddles. And then it took about a week or so before they, just testing and, just hanging out up in the hospital before they realized what was wrong with me and how to fix me. So I had a few heart surgeries to get all of that sorted out. About a 6 month process where I was healing. And it was really that whole experience that made me transition from being in the IT industry across to being in the health and wellness space. And it's because during that time, for example, there was a week there where I was in the cardiac ward. I was waiting for heart surgery. I was in a room full of 8 or 9 other men. They were all in their 50s, I would say, all overweight. They all looked like they had terrible lifestyles, terrible health. And they were going in for some heavy surgeries, transplants and triple bypasses and this kind of thing. And the therapists were coming in every day. And I would listen, I'd be the fly on the wall listening to these therapy sessions where they're preparing them for death. And it was just mind blowing. And in that moment, I just had this epiphany or just this insight. And I just thought to myself, prevention is the cure. Prevention is the only cure. And so I thought, this is something that I could do. This is something that I feel like, I have passion with. And, especially going through that experience, I thought if I can get myself out of here, get myself strong, build up my health, be that person that can set the example, then I can help a lot of these other people as well. And that's exactly what I did. And it was that insight that actually got me through all of that 6 months of healing, where I said to myself, I'm getting through this so that I can live my purpose, because that really felt like that was my purpose, was to help people with their health and with their lifestyles so that they don't end up in a bad situation like this. Because going through that, I really came to the conclusion that the worst kind of problem you can have is a health problem, because it just affects everything. I couldn't work, I couldn't move my body, I didn't exercise for half a year. I couldn't even walk up the flight of stairs after surgery to go to my bedroom. I had to set my bed up. My family had to set my bed up downstairs in my living room because the surgery, it wasn't an open heart surgery. It was through the groin. They put all these wires in, get into the artery. And I was just all, cut up and bruised and everything in that hip crease. And I literally couldn't like stand up properly or lift my knees up and walk straight. So it was a tough physical healing as well as emotional healing. It was just horrible, really. But at the same time, it was such a blessing because it's led me to where I am now, where I ended up quitting that job. I wasn't happy in that job that I was in anyway for the last 3, 4 years, and I really wanted to get out, but I didn't have that courage to get out. I didn't have the insight as to where I was going to go or what I was going to do. And going through this experience just completely unlocked everything for me to the point where I knew what I wanted to do. I had the courage to do it. I had the intuition that just said go. And so that's something that came up for me. So I just thought, you know what, I'm going for it. And it doesn't matter if I'm not mentally prepared or if I don't think I'm ready or I don't have all of the answers that I need. I still knew that it was the right thing to do and I still went for it. So I wouldn't have done that had I not been through that experience. And I think that's something that a lot of people maybe tend to struggle with, is they don't have a highly traumatic experience that can move them and shake them the way that it did for me. So then that's where the coaching comes in, where, you have to realize that not all of the traffic lights are going to be green before you take off. You got to wait for the first one to be green and then you go. And then the next one might be red, but then, that's going to be that little hurdle that you will get through. That's something that I really battled with before, where I wanted everything to be a green light. I wanted all my ducks lined up before I took any action. And I just got nowhere with that. So moving into the fitness industry, I then opened up a gym, and it's just been an amazing experience since 2010 up until now. I've literally helped thousands of people transforming their lives. So I got my certification in personal training as well as life coaching, because initially I started doing personal training, and the people that I were attracting to help, my clients, I wasn't able to facilitate the change that they needed just from the education that I had from personal training. So I then went on and I did the life coaching, and then that just kind of blew everything up. That allowed me to have the skill set to be able to help people work through their psychological and emotional problems as well, which turns out were the real main problems for the increased weight and the poor habits. So having that life coaching education really just opened it up for me. And that's kind of where I've been through now. So I integrate the life coaching and the physical fitness, and I bring it together. And that's how I've been able to facilitate change for so many people over these years.
Yeah. If you can't have a healthy body, then how can you have a healthy life? Because the moment you have something wrong with you is the moment you're like, whoa, everything starts to shift, right? For example, let's use something as minuscule as the common cold. You don't even realize how good you got it until you got the runny nose, until you're coughing, until you got a fever. You're like, Jesus, I feel terrible, right? Feel like death. Yeah,
Yeah.
that small trauma, right? Eventually, in 3 to 5 days, it subsides and you forget it ever happened. But when
Yeah.
we have something big like a heart surgery, a stroke, right? Something really big where therapists are coming in, talking to us, coaching us through the death process. What could happen possible? That right there is so mind jolting. It's like, I need to make some changes, right? And you had that experience that woke you up. And I mean, our world today is very technological, where it's like people can be software engineers, they can work remote from home, they can be at a computer all day. There's not much manual labor and very physical activities they have to do at work. Some jobs are. I'm not saying that every job is like that, but the way our world is moving, a lot of people can have jobs where they can stay at home, answer some calls, join some Zoom meetings, and then that is their lifestyle. Yet there's no movement, yet there's no structure. And no wonder why, many people are struggling and they're so stressed and they just don't like their job, is because they're just stuck in a room or their cubicle, and there's no joy there. And what you found was movement, whether it be through the personal training aspect or just getting out, right? Bringing people to the facility saying, hey, let's get you back on track, not just physically and your personal, health, but also mentally, right? And that's so important for people to realize, because sometimes we neglect that. We focus on maybe the money, the bills, the relationship, the kids. We forget one of the most important people in the world, ourselves. Why do you think people put themselves on the back burner so readily and wait to the last minute to try to fix things rather than being preemptive and saying, you know what, let me do some work today so I don't have to suffer tomorrow?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I think a lot of it comes from just the habits that build up with our lifestyle. Because I think if you think about like our generation, people born in the 80s and 70s, 80s, 90s, basically our parents and our grandparents came from a totally different world, a pre-technology world where things were just more naturally less sedentary. People didn't have these sit down jobs all day. Now, especially since COVID, it's just, crazy. You can sit literally in your desk all day long and not move all day. And I think that is a huge part of it. I think people just get caught up in the work and the lifestyle, and then all of a sudden it just blows out. So I think that's a huge problem. And then it's hard to change, habits are hard to break. And this is where people, say, oh, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to sugar, or I'm addicted to coffee or whatever. But, really it's just an ingrained habit, and it does take effort. There is resistance to change. So I think that it's just a natural occurrence that we all have, every single one of us, the healthiest of healthy and the unhealthiest of unhealthy. And I think it's just really a matter of understanding that nothing will change unless you do. And when you realize that it's in your hands and you don't make yourself a victim of your circumstances, then you become empowered, and you say to yourself, yes, I can do this. The thing is that for the most part, most people will not actually make that change unless the pain is great enough. Like there's a great story I heard from Les Brown, and he said that he was walking down the street and there was a family sitting on their front porch. It was a hot day, and the dog was lying on the driveway, and the dog was moaning like it was in pain. But it wasn't moving, it was just lying there moaning. And as he walked past, he said to the owner, "Why is your dog moaning like that?" And he said, "Oh, he's lying on a rock." And then he's like, "Well, why doesn't he move?" And then he said, "Oh, because it doesn't hurt him enough to move." So the dog will just lie there moaning and complaining, but not move because the pain isn't great enough. And I think that's where coaching can come in, because it's about really diving deep and finding that pain point that's actually going to facilitate change. And that's why a lot of people don't like to face those type of, coaching and those conversations, because they are the hard conversations. But at the same time, it's, would you rather have a hard conversation and change your life for the better? Or would you rather have a hard life and avoid those hard conversations forever? And eventually it will build up to a point where, you go to your doctor and the doctor says, you need to exercise more, you need to change your diet, otherwise you're going to die healthy. You're going to die young. And, like, do we want that? So we got to weigh it up. We got to have that consciousness, that insight. We got to sort of be a little bit more forward thinking and check in on ourselves from time to time rather than avoiding the mirror. When you look in the mirror, you can have a good assessment of yourself and say, hey, do I need to make some changes here? Like, we got to be real with ourselves. And, I think it's a tough thing to do in everyone's defense.
We have those real traumas in our life where it's not that small rock. Maybe it could be a boulder rolling down the street, finally about to run over the dog, and the dog's like, oh, I need to move before this boulder crushes me, right? So that life or death situation, that small pebble can be the turning point for someone saying, this feels uncomfortable. I want to make some changes. So I wanted to brainstorm with you some ways where people, they might not be in that sense of danger yet, where it's life or death, where it's not the point where it's so bad. It's like, okay, well, I have to make some changes. It's tolerable enough where people just stay complacent where they are. Just like that dog was on that rock. It wasn't hurting that dog enough for the dog to say, you know what, let me move to the grass, or let me move to a nice comfy bed, right? What is an artificial way, and this is just hypothetically speaking with you, right? Can people put in their mind to say, I need to get off this rock. I need to get off this pebble. It might not be hurting me today, but long term, it's going to have some serious effects. How can I take action right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like to use future pacing. So generally, people are more driven to change or to, make adjustments based on pain than they are of pleasure. So for example, if you set yourself a goal, it's like, yeah, I want to be, 10 pounds lighter and look amazing, and something that gives you pleasure, then I think that can be motivating in the moment, but then it might not last very long. Whereas if you're motivated by pain, then that can be a little bit more shocking and scary, and that can kind of get into your subconscious a bit better. So that's why I like to future pace. So I say to people, okay, if you keep going the way you're going now, let's say nothing changes, you keep eating the food that you're eating, you keep living the sedentary lifestyle. Let's fast forward 5 years. Like if you've gained, 10 kilos or 10 pounds or whatever this last year, let's times that by 5. What's going to be that outcome? I want you to go to that place that might be uncomfortable for you to go now, but go there now and think about how does that impact what you see in the mirror, how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem, your wardrobe. Do you have to get a whole new wardrobe because you don't fit into those clothes? What's the relationship going to be like with your partner? How are your friends going to, be with you? How's it going to be with your family? All of these things and just try and drum up as much pain as possible around the future of if nothing changes. And I think that's a really good hack that people can do for themselves that can help them to say, you know what, that's right. If I continue like this, I might die. I might have a heart attack. I might end up on medication for high blood pressure, or, and doctors do this, I think. They say, look, if you keep going like this, I'm going to have to put you on some medication, So I think that future pacing is a great sort of hack that people can use, but it has to be for pain, not for pleasure. Because I think a lot of people do make the mistake of they set these great goals. I want to get into this bikini for summer. Awesome. That's great. But how motivating is that really? When that cake is in front of you, you got to weigh it up.
Mm-hmm. Most people are going to choose the cake every single time, especially if it's their favorite. So if they like chocolate and it's right in front of them, they're like, I would rather have instant pleasure than, pleasure in 5 years when I'm not on my deathbed or something like that. For me, I always say pain is weakness leaving the body. we become stronger the more we work out. And I know it sucks in the beginning, especially if you are like at a level one. It's just like you're maybe overweight, severely overweight. You have to be very careful on how you do it. And it's important that you have someone who's trained like you, who can help them go through that process where you're not just doing things to hurt yourself. When you're working out, yes, you're going to get sore. Yes, you're going to maybe be out of breath. Your mindset is going to be flaring. Like your brain is going to set off warning signals, right? You're going to feel maybe nauseous. You're going to feel dizzy. You're going to be sweating. Your heart rate goes up. All warning signs, right? The brain has a hard time determining if what you're doing is dangerous or is beneficial. So in the beginning, you're going to have to go through that danger, that mindset aspect to physical fitness is going to be there, where you're going to be on the treadmill, maybe Stairmaster, whatever you're doing. You're going to be going for about 5 minutes and you're going to get all these warning signs. Stop, 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 stop. What do you tell that person to do?
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people aren't used to that when it's a brand new thing and they've never exercised before. I always like to tell them a story about when I came out of my heart surgery and I'd done all of my recovery, and then I had to go back to the hospital to do a heart check. I had to do a stress test where they put you on a treadmill and they get you running. Now, at this point, I hadn't done any exercise for 6 months. And on top of that, I had anxiety to get my heart rate up because the last time my heart rate went up, I had a cardiac arrest. And I told all of these concerns to the doctor, and he's like, look, if anything happens, we'll save your life. It's okay. If you like, now's the time to do it. So when he said that to me, I just thought to myself, you know what? He's right. I'm gonna just go for it. So I got on that treadmill and then I kept telling the lady, turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. We went for about 6 minutes and I got it to like a really high level where I was running as fast as I could. And I was just trying to see how my body would respond. My heart rate was through the roof. I was sweating, my muscles were aching because I hadn't used my body like this for such a long time. And even for the days after, I was so sore. Doing that actually gave me confidence because I realized that I didn't die and I'm okay. And, so once you get through that first one, once you push yourself through that, you kind of have to go. It's like being thrown in the deep water. Like when I was a little kid, I learned how to swim. My great grandfather taught me how to swim. He took me down to the lake and he threw me in the water. It was only like hip height for him, but for me, it was very deep. But he was right there with me to grab me if there was an issue. And he just threw me in there. And then he's like, kick your legs, move your hands, lift up your head. And after about 10 seconds, I got it. And then we just refined it from there. So we have to put ourselves in this position where yes, it's going to be painful. Yes, it's going to hurt. And even for days later, you're going to be in pain, but there's nothing wrong with you. It's totally normal. So you kind of just like give people that assurance that this is the process. And it's not like that forever either. Like some people, they'll do a workout and they'll say like, how do you work out every day? I did one workout and like, I can't even get out of bed. But the thing is adaptation, right? Your body adjusts the more you put it under stress, just like anything. So if you work your legs out, they'll be really, really sore. But then the next week when you do them, maybe 50% of that pain. And then the week after that, maybe 25% of that pain. And then eventually you're so conditioned that you actually have to add more weights, do more reps, and work even harder to get yourself into that state where your body goes through that breakdown again. Often you can just push yourself like in a massive level once you've got that conditioning phase done, and you'll just grow muscle, you'll get stronger, and you won't even have that pain because your body is completely conditioned. But then if you change the exercise and say go from a squat to a lunge, you'll go through that process again where it's like, oh, this is a little bit different. You're working muscles in a different way. So you go through that thing. So you start to get to know your body more. And this is the beautiful thing about movement and exercise is you actually start to understand how your body responds to things. And if we don't move it, then we don't understand it. It's like you have to actually experience something to know it. Like there's a great quote, it's to know and not do is to not know. So, hypothetical, it doesn't really teach us anything. So we really got to get out there. We really got to do it. We got to feel it and know it for ourselves to have that experience, like a relationship, like anything.
For you, you have a great mindset, I can tell. It's very powerful just from you were on the treadmill and you had that anxiety, but then the doctor reassured you if anything happens, we're there for you. We're going to help you out, right? Sometimes you could be on the edge of the pool if you're like a little kid or something like that. And you're saying, jump in, jump in, jump in. The kid is like, no, I'm not going to jump in, right? Because it's that fear aspect, that mindset, that block that they gave themselves. It's like a roadblock. Some people just have it and it's very difficult to get over that roadblock. What are some effective ways that you have found to get over those hurdles or those roadblocks that we often give ourselves?
It really comes down to, I think, just the insight and perspective on the situation. So I think again, like trying to find the reason why somebody maybe is are holding them back. And generally it would be a fear. So it would be a fear of failure or a fear of having to, be seen as someone who is a beginner and not somebody who is, further along. And, all this comes back to the identity. And I think we just have to understand that we're all the same. We all learn the same way. We're all good at some things and not good at other things. And if we just let that ego calm down a little bit and understand that, this is for personal development, I think that's a great strategy. And then also, some people need to be moved along a little bit slower than other people as well. Some people really do have deep health fears, like health anxieties, where they really fear that if they move their body too much or if they overexert themselves too much, they might die. They might have heart failure. They might, so you really have to kind of nurture that mindset as well. That, I guess, in a way, it's a fragile mindset, but if it's that reassurance does help. This is where, if you're in this type of situation, you really do need a coach. You really do need somebody holding your hand, guiding you through, giving you that reassurance, just like I had when I was in the hospital with the doctor there. Like, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have gotten on that treadmill and just busted my ass on that treadmill unless he actually said those words to me. If anything happens to you right here, we will save your life. He said those words. It just gave me so much reassurance. And I think just having somebody there backing you, somebody there that's like got your back, that can, just help you and give you that support. Support is so huge. We all need support in our lives. And you might think that you're amazing at one thing, and you probably are. We've all got our area, our zone of genius, but there's always something that, we need help with to get better. And so that's where we really need to just be able to reach out and say, hey, can you help me out with this? And I think that is a big hurdle for a lot of people. They don't know how to ask for help, whether that's because they don't want to put people out because they're too nice, or whether they, don't want to pay for something because they think that they won't get their return on their investment, not because of the person that's helping them, but more so because of their belief that they won't follow through or they won't be able to do it. So a lot of the reasons why I think people don't do coaching and get coaching is because they don't believe that they will be able to follow through, and therefore they'll waste their money or their time and the other person's time, or upset the other person. And I think that is also a huge hurdle that people need to consider overcoming. Just having that belief that, if other people can do it, so can you.
Yeah, just having a coach is so powerful because they're going to challenge you. We find our nice, comfortable spot, right? What we're good at, like our zone of genius. And that's right, right? If we're good at something, we're going to do just that. We're not going to challenge ourselves. We're going to say, well, I'm good at this. This is what we do. At some point, we have to get out of that comfort zone. We have to get out of that way of thinking or way of living and begin to challenge yourself. For example, if you're at the gym and you're on the treadmill, and let's say you always do 4 miles per hour on the treadmill, and that's where you feel comfortable. Not too hard, not too easy, just enough, right? But if you had a trainer there, they're like, we're going to 7 today. Hit that 7 there. Now you're like, whoa, fear's kicking in. You're going to feel it at the end of it. Like, whoa, I just accomplished that. I just ran 7 miles an hour. Like, I didn't even think I could do that. So we give ourselves that belief, and the belief sometimes happens after the fact. So we might not have belief in the beginning, but we do the task, we do the objective, and then we're like, oh, right, cool. Now I'm confident, right? Confidence comes after. You talked about anxiety, right? People are very anxious, maybe about themselves, about the results, being beginners. But then once they do something, it becomes easy for them, right? Just acclimating to that. There's 2 schools of thought here, right? You can tiptoe into the cold pool and then like, oh, it's cold, it's cold. And it takes a lot longer. Or you can jump in, right? And you're like, boom, and you just get used to it. Sometimes people do the hard route, tiptoe into the pool, thinking it's the easy way, when just jumping in would have been, just almost painless. It's just like psychologically, our mind is so powerful. And when we are feeling, that water creep up, on our knees and then our thighs and our belly, and we're like, oh, this is cold, right? It freezes us more so than if we just jumped in, got used to the water, and we're good. Most people, they give themselves that freeze, right? How do you help people unfreeze their mind when it gets stuck?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenging one. I always just try and push people. Like, yeah, for example, like the perfect example on the treadmill, like I get this all the time where my clients, they'll come in for a workout session, and then I'll say to them, this is what we're doing today. I want you to do these sets, these reps. And they're like, oh, whoa, really? They're like, you can tell that I want to do that, right? And then they do it. And then after they've done it, they said, there's no way I would have done that. And then they follow up with, do you think next week, we'll be able to do more? And so it's amazing that once they actually get pushed through that stage, that they actually crave more of that. And I think it's just unlocking the mind to say, hey, you can actually do this. It's really comes down to belief. They just don't believe that they can do it. So it's, you got to convince them. You got to just say, look, just trust me. You're going to be able to do this. And I think that a big way or a great way to help people is for the coach to have faith in the client. So I think that's a huge thing. If the coach doesn't have faith in the client, more times than often, the client doesn't have faith in the client. So someone's got to bring the faith, right? And if you can come in there and say, I know you can do this, you got to have that conviction, and you got to just say, like, I believe in you. I've seen people do this 1,000 times in way worse condition than you. You can do this. I know it. And just have that belief. And it's true. Like, and it is, it's really true. And I really do believe in everybody that they can go further than what they think they can, because I've just seen it so many times. And it's just a matter of just instilling that faith in them, and also, having enough rapport with them where they trust you as well to be able to actually do it. And then if they've got the trust in you and you've got the faith, then you can get them to just take that step and just jump in and go for it. When I was a kid, I used to peel the Band-Aid off my knee so slow, and it was painful, and then one day my dad showed me how to do it. And then he's like, look over there, bang. And then he ripped it off. And I didn't know. And then I was like, I was in such shock. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, that's a great way to do it, And then ever since then, I just had the courage like that, because I knew, like, I just always referred back to that time. And I was like, remember that time when dad ripped that Band-Aid off my knee? I didn't even feel it. And I was sitting there for 10 minutes trying to peel it off one by one by one. And so then the next time I had to peel a Band-Aid off, I just took a deep breath and I just ripped that sucker off. And then I was like, yeah, this is the way to go from here. So now I call it the Band-Aid method, where I just say to everybody, we're just going in hard and fast, and you're going to get through it. So yeah, it's about, I think, rapport and just building that trust with people and just instilling the faith in them. It does come down to a deep sense of faith that you can do it. You can overstep your limit. We have this, I call it a box, which is our comfort zone. So we all have a box that we're in. Anything within inside that box, it's easy. We can do it. We have confidence. It's all good. But anything outside that box, it's outside of that zone. So I help people to step outside of that box. I say we're opening the lid on that box and we're getting through into the next area. Now, once we get through into that next area, you're going to find that area comfortable, but then there's another box, and there's just a constant level of boxes that continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And as you step out of each box and go into the next area, you're developing, you're becoming a better person, more empowered, more successful, more capable, more healthy, longer life, everything. You're just becoming the better version of yourself, the 10.0 version. So we just got to keep breaking through those boxes, getting out of those comfort zones, and just taking it to the next level. And you will always be able to do that if you keep pushing. And like you said, it is hard, but yeah, it's just something that I think that it's a mindset. And if we think like that, we can do it. And you always have reference points around you. There's always somebody doing something better than you, no matter who it is or what it is. There's always someone to reference and go, well, he can do it or she can do it. So that means that I can do it as well. And I love it when to see successful people doing greater things than what I'm doing, because that is just all the encouragement that I need.
And I mean, today, yes, we do have so many good examples of people doing things. So certain body, the certain objective, whether it be doing triathlons or trying to beat, Guinness World Records and saying, okay, well, he got close to it. I don't have to go 2 more feet. So we look at the aspect of, has it been done before too? Because just because it hasn't been done, it doesn't mean it's impossible. Similar to Roger Bannister, right? The 4-minute mile.
4-minute mile.
Everyone said, like, oh, you can't do it. Even scientists were like, if you do the 4-minute mile, your heart is going to explode. It's impossible for the human body. He's like, no. He's like, I think I can do it. Right. So he had that belief. And I'm sure he had coaches there too. You can do it. Right. The time is so close. And when he did it, he shocked the world. And then guess what the world did? People after people ran the 4-minute mile.
College students.
Exactly. And it's just like, we shock the system. And sometimes we have to shock our system, right? Because we might be given a belief from our parents, people that love us, right? Parents and teachers. And they say, just, do what you can, don't do too much. When reality is like, we have the potential to do amazing things. The human body is amazing. Similar to how we can, launch ourselves into space and walk on the moon, and we can dive, free dive, not even with scuba tanks. How can the body do that? It acclimates, it challenges itself, it shocks itself. If we can learn how to untap all the areas of potential within us, what are the possibilities for the world? Do you think people will be in a better place, not only mentally and physically, but also worldly as in culture?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that we haven't even scratched the surface of what's capable. I think, our body is the most amazing, most advanced computer system that, we don't understand. We don't have the manual for it. So we got to figure it out as we go. But yeah, like the power of the mind and the subconscious and the ability to create and, the ability to sustain and endure such amazing things that people have. Like, you hear about these earthquakes and stuff that happen, and there's people that are living under rubble for 7, 8 days and they survive. There was a guy that was rock climbing and he got his arm lodged between two rocks and he cut his own arm off to survive. Like the amount of like these things just make my mind just blown, at what we're capable of. And you just hear story after story of all these feats. And, you hear the cliche story of how, the mother can lift a car to get her child from under it, You're like that actually happened. The amount of strength that we can generate in times when we actually need it, it's just unfathomable. And I think that there's so much to tap into in terms of our mind and the mind body connection and what we can do that I think and the world is, as much as there's a lot going on in the world, there's a lot of crappy things happening in the world, but at the same time, it's equally amazing as well. It's equally, we've had such advancements and we've come so far that it's equally as great as it is not great. But I also think that's the nature of who we are as well. We're battling this dark side versus light side and this good versus evil within our own self. And so that duality as well is part of the evolution of us. And I think that over time, I think we're just going to get better and better and better and more collective as well. And I think that that is a big part of it is when we become collective, like the internet has brought so much knowledge to us. Like I remember, I was born in 1980. So when I was in high school and primary school, like there was no phone, there was no internet, nothing, right? So, and something that I really, really loved was basketball. Basketball wasn't that popular in Australia in those days. It was more like the football and soccer and things like that. And so it was hard to get access to games, to watch the NBA or anything like that. So it was on at 10 p.m. on a Friday night or something like that, And so it was tough to actually just to be able to see it and to learn from that. And whereas now, and so for me, I always think like, how can I learn new skills? I learn by watching. And now I jump on the internet and I'm like, LeBron James workout program. And then you see you can watch his whole intimate workout program with his trainer, his warm-ups, his stretches, his shooting drills, conversations about his mindset, like from like everything. And I always think to myself, wow, if I had this information, if I could access this information when I was 12 years old, I feel like that would have just been a game changer for me, and not just with sport, but with anything. So I think that with the emergence of technology, I think that's really brought us all together in a way that we can consolidate. And even like now, we're across the world from each other and we're being able to have this conversation. And I think sharing ideas and stuff just helps so much in order for us to advance a lot faster. And so I think that that's something that's huge is for us to be able to collaborate. And I think that's what's going to make the world a better place, which is, I think, is what's happening.
When we look at the greats like Michael Jordan, Kobe, LeBron James, right? He's one of them. They all have people who have helped them, trained them, coached them, not just physically, but mindset too, right? Tim Grover was the guy who did MJ and Kobe, and, he worked with the Bulls and stuff like that. So he's a well-renowned guy, and he has a whole book about the, his process and this, like the training process, right? It was more than just, all right, run up and down the court, eat this food and stuff like that. It's like, how are you thinking, right? Because sometimes we just get into that mindset of thinking, and okay, as long as I do this, I'm number one. Kobe had a Mamba mentality, right? He would work out, 3 times a day, or he'll practice 3 times a day when everyone else in the world was doing 2. So he was going above and beyond, right? He just had that drive. And sometimes you're just going to have those people who are just like, I'm hungry for this. I'm hungry for success. I'm hungry for growth. LeBron saw that too. So what LeBron did was he's like, I don't care how much it costs. I think he spends like $2 million a year on coaches and trainers and mindset, because he understands how powerful it is. And people are so worried about cost. So, about them, wasting their money, but it's not a waste of money because it's giving you the opportunity for so much growth. LeBron wouldn't be LeBron if he didn't have coaches and trainers and people helping him along the way. Michael wouldn't be Michael if he didn't have the same people too. We all have to give ourselves someone who's going to be there in our corner. They are supporting us because from that support, then we can start to see some growth. I think people are afraid to grow. People are afraid to change, right? Because what's comfortable is comfortable and what's unknown is like, I don't know what that is. So people might be overweight, unhappy, unsatisfied in a job that's unfulfilling, and they accept it. They're just like, okay, well, I'm just going to stay here, right? Because it's okay. It's good enough. We have to stop accepting what's just good enough. Let's challenge ourselves to be something, right? To, push yourself a little bit more. It doesn't have to be a lot. And I think it's very scary for people because when we look at like Tony Robbins, he goes, you have to take massive action, right? And for, it's a subconscious mind, massive action. That's a lot of work. But if we just do one more rep, one more set, one more step, when you're on the treadmill and your brain is, firing up saying, hey, you need to stop, dare yourself. I'm going to go for 10 more seconds. I'm going to go for 1 more minute. You start there and you build yourself up. And then when you were getting winded at 5 minutes, now you're getting winded at 15 minutes and then 30 and then an hour. And then you could do it all day long because it's a mind component there. It's called a swimmer rhythm or a runner's high, where you're just kind of in it. You're just in it. You're just doing it. And it's just like, yeah, cool. It's like you and I can probably talk all day. We're just in that conversation flow. Our body can do the same thing physically and mentally. We can just get into that flow. I'm sure people know about things they love doing. So if you love fishing, you can fish all day, right? I love fishing all day. Maybe you love painting. I'll paint all day. If you love gardening, you garden all day. You find the joy. I know sometimes in the beginning, especially when it comes to the body, especially when it comes to getting over mindset, it could be a little bit challenging, a little bit daunting in the beginning. But if you have someone there, again, like we talked about, a trainer, a coach, they're saying, hey, let's go together. Let's do this because I know you can. Having that belief in that person, right? That faith in them. Then that person is going to see for themselves, wow, I was able to do that. And then it goes generation to generation. Right now, we have a generation that's very divided because everyone was behind a monitor for, how many years for the whole pandemic and things like that. So now they're finally getting out. Coaches are going to be what is necessary for them to jolt themselves out because parents are already thinking that closed mindset. And the teachers are probably the same way. And the students are all the same way. So we have a congregation of people who are just in that stuck mindset. So we have to get into that growth and developmental type of mindset. And then from there, we're going to start to see the world change for the better. And it's so important that the work that you do, because you're helping people realize that they have so much more to give. They do have so much to give. It's just sometimes they are afraid to take that first step. And I know that you're there to support every single step that they take. And it's so important. And I want people to recognize that. And I want people to, reach out to you and to ask the questions that they might have, right? How can I have a better mindset? How can I have a better body? What are the steps to that? And I know the coaching that you do is going to be able to be a great benefit for them. As we begin to wrap up our session today, can you please share with us any last words? And then please tell the audience where they can find you.
Just on that last note, I think that's such an important thing as well. And the world is changing so much, so we have to adapt all the time. We have to adjust. And so what I like to tell people and what I do for myself is I think that we need to admire, in the world and then stay in the character of that person. So they talk about like Beyonce has an alter ego and Kobe has his alter ego, the Black Mamba. And this is where they get into character and stay in that character of the man or the woman that you want to be. So acquiring what you admire and then staying in that character every day and showing up every day. So I think that's like a great sort of mindset moving forward for people. And then, in terms of me, if you would like to touch base with me, the best place to get me is on Instagram. You can follow me. My handle is at SQ1 Fitness AUS. And I basically document my life there. I document my daily process so you can see how I go through my day, what I do when I wake up, the supplements I take, the workouts I do. I share everything online. And also, if you wanted to visit my website and check out my programs, it's sq1fitness.com.au. And that's where you can get in touch with me for some one-on-one coaching or some group coaching. My programs are online. And so as you said, from the changes that happened throughout COVID, I pivoted as well. So I went from facilitating fitness sessions one-on-one and coaching sessions in person, face-to-face. And throughout COVID, it changed everything. So then I changed and adapted. And so now I work online. So I'm available to the entire world and I'm able to facilitate change for people anywhere around the world, anytime basically. And that's the adaptation that I've been able to do over that time. And the way I did that was I got a coach. So I knew I was very clear on how to train people in a gym environment, but I was very unclear on how to train people in an online environment. So I hired a coach who specializes in training people in fitness and mindset online. And I got him to help me. And, that has helped me to be able to establish my business online. So again, it's just another example of how coaching can be so beneficial as you adapt and as you change to the changing world.
Yes, and the world's always going to throw us a monkey wrench, and we have to be ready to pivot at a moment's notice. So you're going to find on your journey of life that you have a good understanding, a direction that you want to go, and you might be going and you might get smacked down, hit down a rock bottom, and then realize that rock bottom had a basement and get down, knocked down even more. You're just trying to figure out, well, how do I get out? You can crawl out by yourself and you can take the long road. But getting a coach is going to be just so much more powerful, and it's going to be so much more effective. You're going to get to the places that you want to be so much quicker. And I encourage everyone to, check out your website. All the links are going to be in the description box below so people can easily find you, reach out to you. And then what you do on Instagram, using your life as an example is going to be the realization that it is possible because they're seeing it firsthand. And I think that's so important, right? The firsthand aspect of it. I do want to thank you so much for coming on, speaking with us today about the work you do and how you help people get into a better body and a better mind. So powerful.
Thank you so much, Michael. So good to be here. Great chat.